Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery.
This is episode 43, Amends, Apologies, Harms, and Hurts. I had somebody in recovery tell me that they owe me an amends for something that was pretty slight. In fact, this has happened a number of times. When one of my sponsees says they owe an amends for something slight, I have the conversation with them that I'm about to have with you about the difference between an apology and an amends. There is a huge difference between apologizing and making an amends to somebody in 12-step recovery. There's also a difference between harming someone and hurting someone, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, an amends is where we've done something to harm someone and we are not only apologizing, but we're changing our behavior and possibly even doing something active to make up for the harm. If you have done something rather slight and it's just one time, for example, you didn't call someone back, an apology is fine. That is not something that requires an amends. Another thing that I've seen come up again and again in recovery regarding amends with people who have not yet gotten to steps 8 and 9 is they talk about needing to make amends for something that they just did. If you haven't gotten that far in the steps, you're not prepared to make amends. First, depending on whether you've gotten through step 4, you may not even have figured out what your defects of character are. Second, if you haven't gotten to step 6, you haven't become entirely ready to have those defects removed. Or if you haven't gotten to step 7, you haven't humbly asked God to remove those defects of character. So how can you possibly say that your behavior is going to change, which a true amends requires, when you're not even clear what those behaviors are and you haven't done the spiritual work on those defects? Until you get to that point in the steps, you're not ready to make amends to anyone. If something comes up with someone, whether it's a memory from the past or something you've just done that's part of your pattern of dysfunction, you should put the people affected on your 8th step amends list so that when you get to step 8, you'll remember. And you should be putting your behaviors involved on your 6th step behavior list so you know what defects to become entirely ready to have removed when you get to step 6. So again, an apology is different than an amends. Amends are reserved for harms you've caused people, not slights, which can be covered by an apology. Now I'm going to shift to talking about the difference between harm and hurt. Step 8 says we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. There's a difference between harming someone and hurting someone. I'm going to use setting boundaries as a way to illustrate the difference. Before recovery, I was afraid I was going to hurt someone's feelings by setting a boundary with them. What I've learned as I've gotten better and better at setting boundaries is that it is good for me to set boundaries. It is good for other people to have me set boundaries with them also. I know who I am and you know who I am, where I begin and where I end, what's okay with me and what's not okay with me. You know my rules of engagement and what they are. It is not harmful to set a boundary with someone, unless you're cruel about it, that is. It may hurt their feelings, but it does not harm them. It's possible for something to harm you, but not hurt you. And it's possible for something to hurt you that is not harmful. For example, if you go to the dentist to get a cavity filled, it might hurt, but it's not harmful. In fact, it's healing. Backtrack to when you ate that sugar that caused the cavity. Did that hurt? No, of course not. In fact, it was probably quite pleasurable. However, it did harm you. Things can be hurtful and not harm you, like the dentist drill, and things can harm you and not be hurtful, like eating the sugar which causes the cavities. When we're talking about the realm of amends, we're talking about things that actually harm people, not things that necessarily hurt people. If someone is hurt because you set a boundary with them, that's okay. It's new behavior and it might hurt for a while until you get used to it, but it's not harmful. You don't need to make amends for setting a boundary. In fact, you don't need to apologize for setting a boundary either. You can feel sorry if someone is hurt, but you should not apologize for setting boundaries around your own life. It's your life. I've learned that if it comes to a choice between me being honest versus hurting someone's feelings by setting a boundary, I pick being honest. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm going to be as kind and gentle as I possibly can be in setting boundaries with them. But if that hurts them, then that's something they're going to have to manage. It's not my job to manage their feelings, which is what I was trying to do before I started setting boundaries with people. And it's just not possible. Remember that we're seeking to know the difference between the things we can and cannot change. The Serenity Prayer is a prayer about boundaries. It seeks to give us clarity about what's within our boundary and what's not. So I hope this illustration of using boundaries to distinguish between harms and hurts has been helpful. And I hope that I've given you some clarity about the difference between just a simple apology and making an amends, and the difference between harming someone and hurting someone. May you have the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com, and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.